course, very dear and special to you because it's home, but then there's also something very representative about the city, that it could be anywhere where there are these kind of difficulties in health. So is there something in particular about Newark that, in addition to being from there, that makes it kind of representative of something that we should think about as ways of finding solutions or ways of drawing from a home place or even being inspired by that home place?
Yeah, I don't think Newark is particularly unique to any or separated from any inner city or rural area or suburban area. I think it has the same makeup as any sort of inner city population. I really do. It's particularly dear to me because I grew up there, and it's my footprint is what I know. But I also have extensions in other parts of the country as well. DC is I remember being here many a times, hanging out, and I went to medical school at Robert Wood Johnson, and my last 2 years, the clinical years, were spent at Camden at Cooper Hospital. And Camden is another place that's very destroyed there, dilapidated, and a lot of destruction. But I remember for fun, I would drive to DC just to hang out, and it was a 2-hour drive. And back then, when you're 19 and 20, 2 hours is nothing. As you get older, you need more sleep, so 2 hours matters. But I say that to say that these stories, in particular, unfolded in a personal way for me because of where I grew up and where I was born. To be back in the same hospital, you gotta understand, this is the same facility I was born in, and to be back there now as a physician, not as a statistic, not as a young man that I knew who came through the door who was shot. And the book opens up speaking of the armed robbery that took place in Unfolded. And I'll talk about, it was 4 of us, and I speak about my first day doing trauma rotation at University Hospital. And my first day in trauma rotation, we sit in a room similar to this. It's this big chalkboard that's up front, and you have names of patients that came in the day before, and you have another side of updates on patients that's been there for a while. And so it was this name, I changed the names in the book for privacy and protection, but the name that I used in the book was Don Moses, so Don Moses, a.k.a. Snake. His name was on the board, so I'm like, what is the possibility that this is the same Don Moses that I know? I mean, what are the odds? What are the chances? So right through his name, there was a slash, and underneath his name was the word deceased. And so this is my first day on trauma, and I just remember, like, man, this cannot be possible. And this is, again, this is the same guy, armed robbery, we're running down the streets, and I see him running next to me, and you can see, like, his face mirrored my face, the same fear as the police was in pursuit of us. And he was older than me, he was an adult, so he was sentenced to 7 years in prison. And just to see, that name, I'm sitting there uncomfortable. I just sound like, oh God, I got to go down in surgical ICU, see if it really is him. So when the rounds were over, I ran down to the surgical intensive care unit, and I saw a group of people gather around the room, and it was him. His body had been taken away, but his family was still there, and he had passed away complications from the multiple gunshot wounds the night before. In the literary sense, for two blind people, in other words, trying to figure out life as they walk in blindly, brother, is this the word that I want to use, as they walk in blindly and trying to figure out the path. So you're going to bump your head, you're going to fall, and so you're depending on your peers to show you where to go and how to go, and they don't know any better themselves. They don't know any better themselves. And so, so if I had an adult male, and that's part of this book, is the reestablishment of community. Like, we've lost our community. We've lost it. And part of our culture is all about community. Again, when I was growing up in the early days, if I did something wrong, not only did I get spanked by my mama, but I got spanked by the neighbor or reprimanded by the neighbor. Then I really got spanked by my mother because I embarrassed her. I embarrassed her. And so, the point is that we have to really get back to the idea of community, but also when it comes to gun control, listen, I don't think anyone, if you didn't cry or shed a tear of what happened in Newtown, then you're not really human, right? I feel like everything that went down in Newtown is a tragedy. 20 kids' lives were lost. But then if you can imagine having 25 Newtowns take place in a given year,
That's Chicago.
Yeah.
That is Chicago. So over 500 murders in 2012. 500 murders. That's like, so that's 25, 20 new towns taking place within 1 year. Can you imagine that? So, trust me, like a kid's life loss is something that you would never move past. It's something that you could never get over. But at the same time, this is something that's been plaguing the inner city communities for decades.